God, if I didn't know better, I would say that you are actually putting me in situations to sin. Yo, the day that this man says that he's not a Christian anymore is going to be the day that I seriously question my faith.
So you're thinking it's likely the case that he knows something that allowed him to sin the way that he was sinning.
So if you're going to try to convert me, just make sure that you don't do any of these things.
Was there a death knell moment where you closed the book on the Bible and Christianity and said, I now know I don't have to worry about this anymore? All right, welcome to Life After Faith. I am here with Denzel. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, man? It's nice to finally connect.
Yes,
I love
sir.
the setup, by the way, and I love the channel too.
Oh, that's what's up, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, seriously, I'm glad that you were able to send me the link, and I was able to check out some of the videos and everything. It was like, okay, you've heard a lot of stories.
Okay. Because we have a mutual friend who was like, hey, I got a friend who's going through the deconversion process now, deconstruction, and she was like, I think he would be a great person to interview, and I just was interested just to hear your story because I don't know anything about your story yet, so I'm going to be a viewer just like everybody else who's watching. I'm just asking questions to get the story out there. But before we dive into the story, what made you actually want to tell your story?
I think the main motivation for me always is the idea that other people are probably going through similar things, even if not congruent things to what I'm going through, which deconstruction, I know that's the case for sure. Yeah. And so it was about first going through the process on my own, making sure that I'm stable enough to be able to then help other people. And even now, it's still not complete. Like, it's not like, it's not like everybody in my life like knows about it. I just kind of like plant seeds. So like my family, both, my actual like immediate family, and then also like in-laws, it's kind of like they know me as like, there goes Denzel again, always like being skeptical or like, boom, boom. But then I kind of like, just, yeah. So
in their eyes, you've always questioned things, but was the Christian faith one of the things that you always questioned, or is that a new, like, wait, he's questioning that now?
Yeah. So in their eyes, they always saw me as, so the main thing that they always saw me as is somebody who's absolutely phenomenal at looking at other people's perspectives. They saw that as dangerous. Like I remember my mother used to always be like, Denzel, like I could never do what you do because like you really like go down all of these like places, like you listen to other people's, thoughts on different religions and stuff like that and different faiths, and it's just too much, but like it seems like that's what you like to do, and there's a reason why God has you doing that, which I agree with her. I do still believe in God, but it's like, oh, now I see it's not the same, it's not for the same reasons that she probably believes. Yeah, but yeah, they always saw me in that kind of way, like somebody who's always like exploring other people's perspective, seeing other people's paradigm, trying to get outside of my own paradigm. And then they saw that as like, that's dangerous, but also he's using it to be able to lure people in. But then what they feared most is pretty much like what happened, where it's like after you learn enough, then it's kind of like you actually, the other side draws you in more. And yeah.
So what do you think was driving you to always want to hear the other side of the coin? Because I'm the same way. I always wanted to know another person's perspective, or there's another side to that story. And I don't know if it was just, FOMO, fear of missing out, or just the curiosity in me. But what do you think drove you?
There's two ways I could tackle this. I'm going to try to converge it. So the simple answer would be that I've always been somebody who believes that to another person, like everybody makes sense in their own head, even if it's not the truth. It makes like they make sense in their own mind. That's why they believe what they do. That's why they think what they do. Okay. And so because I've always already had that belief and that principle, then I just always wanted to understand, even to this day, like even with our mutual friend, like a lot of times, like when she does things that I just literally don't understand at all.
Mm.
Like I can make assumptions, but I'm like, I'll literally just ask her straight up, like, why did you like, what were you thinking when this is that? Like, what was your thought process behind this? Just so that at the very least, if I can understand your math, for lack of better
Mm-hmm.
terms, then even if I didn't come to the same conclusion, I'm like, oh, okay. And that helps me build a paradigm of how you
Yeah.
approach the world. And so then the more complicated answer then becomes like, so I'm a life coach, and
Mm-hmm.
in my life coaching on my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about personality psychology. So I'm really into the 16 personalities, like the Myers Briggs, but
Mm-hmm.
on the deeper level, not just like the oh E versus I, N versus S kind
Right.
of thing. Like, there's like a whole Jungian theory behind it, like a whole
Mm-hmm.
Jungian like, concept and like gold mine of things.
Mm-hmm.
And my personality type, ENFJ, is one that's like very, very uh, intense about understanding other people's perspectives and
Okay.
paradigms, converging things in that way. And so, all of
Mm.
that being said, like, yeah, like I've just always been the type of person that's like, okay,
Right.
I see what my perspective is on something, but I'm curious why another person would conclude this. Why would another person conclude that? Well, am I missing something?
Yeah.
Something like that. So I think
I
that's
get
pretty
you.
much what it comes down to. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. My last two letters in the Myers-Briggs is TP. And I always seem to clash with FJs. And when you read
Yeah.
the science behind it, you understand why.
Uh-huh.
But no, that's very interesting.
Oh, yeah,
So
nice.
okay, let's dive into your story. So you would say you were a Christian and you now no longer are.
Yeah, I would say I don't identify as a Christian anymore because
Okay.
there's people who still tell me that, you are still one. And I'm like, not from my definition, because I feel like
Okay.
in order to be identified as a Christian, you have to believe, you have to have faith. So, yeah, believe that Jesus Christ um, lived a perfect life, died, resurrected on the third day for your
Mm.
sins. And I did firmly believe that, at some point, but over the past maybe 3 to 4 years, it's become harder to really
Hmm.
hold faith to that because it's not to say that it's impossible. Like, I'm not at the
Hmm.
point where it's like, oh, that's such an impossible thing to believe. But it's just more of like, I think it's more and more unlikely. There are so many
Mm.
dissenting and opposing historical, um, just theoretical, conceptual views on the matter that religious views on the matter that I'm like, what? I don't really know what the
Okay.
truth is behind that. So let me just pull away. And by that nature, since I don't believe that, then it's like, yeah, then I'm not a Christian
Okay.
anymore.
Well, let's put a magnifying glass on both of those. First, how did you come to believe that Jesus Christ lived, died, and resurrected for your sins? When, at what point in life, and how did you come to believe that?
I think that I always believed it for as long as I can remember because it was what I grew up around. So
Hmm.
like my parents, they were both very strong Christian. My dad was what we call a presiding elder in the church, so he was like the backup pastor in a way, and he was just super super like he is super super just devout in his faith. So is my mother, grandmother, auntie, everyone on both sides of the family. And then I was just always like around that. I was just always taught like it wasn't like my paradigm was very much like, yeah, no, it's clearly this, it's clearly that. And
Okay.
nobody around me was questioning it. So it's like,
So
okay,
it's the way the world was handed to you.
yeah, that's the best way to put it. Yeah. And then, when I became like 15, yeah, around like 15, 16, that's when I got like really saved. Like that's when I started taking it like more seriously. Me and my boy, David, we both were at a youth convention and then some dudes talked to us. That's a whole long story in and of itself. And then that's when we were like, okay, this is what it really means to like take our Christianity seriously. And we took it far. Like
So
everybody
I'm
was
curious,
calling me
what did they?
pastor.
I know you said it's a whole long story, but what
Yeah.
particularly did they say? What stood out that made you say, "Okay, now I've got to take this thing serious"? If you can remember.
Yeah, I can. Again, trying to find ways to truncate it. I think a lot of it was so I because I already like believed a lot of what the church talked about, especially like spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of capitalize on the spiritual things, like the things that me and David couldn't see. So certain sins or things that we maybe have like struggled with, they had this kind of like
Mm-hmm.
air to them where it's kind of like are you guys like struggling with this and boom boom. Well, it's because this is happening. And it's like, oh shoot. And me and David being like young, we're like, that actually connects, like that makes sense. And they were so confident in how they were presenting it. So it was like, dang, like, yeah, this is how the spiritual realm works. And you know, you can't verify these things. You know, like if you know of C.S. Lewis's book, The Screw Tape Letters.
Yep, I'm very familiar with Screw Tape Letters and C.S. Lewis.
Exactly. Okay, so that book, at least as far as my knowledge, you know, I know I'm not the smartest individual, but as far as my knowledge, we can't verify or disprove that paradigm of like where C.S. Lewis was coming from with that. Like he put, from what I can understand, he made like a very solid case of this is how the spiritual realm works, and this is why this happens, and when this happens, and this is why. And so when you're young and then you kind of like see that, then you're like, oh shoot, like he figured it out. Like this is how this works. And so now you start approaching the world. So this is kind of how they, like the guys who got to me and David, like that's how they were like approaching. Like, yeah, you know, like, most people don't know this, but like when this is happening, this is actually what's happening behind the scenes, and boom boom. And so from there, that's when, you know, like I started to like build my paradigm even more from there. And then that further led me to believing like, yeah, you know, like the Bible's inerrancy and just all of that. Ended up going to Liberty University.
So hold on real quick.
Solely
I'm
because
curious.
yeah.
Before you go there, once you got this deeper understanding of how the spiritual world works and what you need to be watching out for, what changed in your life? Like when you started taking things more seriously, did you get more, I don't know, holy? Did you start reading your Bible more? Like, what were there any kind of like evidences that now is on?
For sure. Yeah. I became incredibly intentional with what I was allowing to contact my spirit. So things even as small as like I love Pokemon. Like I love the game Pokemon. Like I mean I grew up on the show too, but like the game, even to this day, it's like love it. But back then I was told like, you know, it's all demonic. You know, like when you're playing with it, the dude told me even when I was young, he's like, yeah, when you capture, like each time you're capturing Pokemon, he said, I used to love it too. So like I understand, like each time you're capturing it, then it's like influencing you in this way. And like, and the way that he presented it, it was even like, you know, like when like he was like, when you have dreams, like if a kid has a dream, like just like the Bible says, like Satan's not going to show up as like an angel of light. So like if he shows up as like a little Pikachu in your dream, like as a kid and everything, then of course you're gonna like. And to me, I'm like, oh shoot, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? And you know, anybody could probably watching that's like, oh wow, like that's like, how would you believe something like that? But when there's like, that's one example of like hundreds, like, and then I would start making my own connections. And I go back to him. I'm like, yo, I just watched this thing, and again, like you're always seeing what other people are not seeing, which again is another thing of my personality type anyway. So it's like, oh, with the intuition, then it's like, okay, you're seeing past what's already there. And so with that, it was kind of like geared differently. You know, C.S. Lewis, I also believe that he was intuitive. So it's like, it's just something that like you're looking at, but then that's why you need the sensing part, for lack of better terms, to like really ground yourself. Like, okay, well, is this really it? Or at least be aware that like, okay, I'm viewing things this way, but I don't have verified knowledge
Got you.
on this, on how this might be.
Now, as you're
So yeah,
venturing more into understanding things spiritually and understanding the spiritual world, did you also sense a more of a nearness to the God who was in control of that spiritual world? Like, what was the was it did you feel like you were in a relationship with a God at that point?
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And honestly, as of right now, I still do believe
Okay.
that that I am.
Hmm.
And if anything, um, again, as crazy as it may sound, I feel like um, that same God
Hmm.
led me to where I am right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I like my current belief. I'd say like if we had to put a title on it, it'd
Hmm.
be omnist, like an omnism, where it's like you can learn from like you pretty much believe that all different faiths and spiritual beliefs like like they have value and things of that
Hmm.
nature, and you're just intrigued by all of them, and you're just looking for the through lines.
Yeah.
So for me right now, I believe that I believe in God, the universe, spirit, whatever one may call him slash her slash it,
Hmm.
the divine. But unlike in Christianity, where it's like the Bible is God's infallible word, I believe that personally, like currently, I believe that God actually has everyone where they are for a reason, and
Hmm.
has taken everybody the role that they're going for a reason. And so the
Interesting.
reason why even my friend David, who's still very strongly a Christian right now, and he
Hmm.
grieves for me, like it's been very hard.
Hmm.
I believe that God still has him where he is for a reason. So it's not like there's nothing in me that's like I need to go and save
Right.
him and pull him out of this, because I see the work that he's doing. Like he's pretty much Instagram famous now with his art and everything. It's like
Hmm.
I support him. It's all Christian art, like
Hmm.
supporting Black people and everything too. But it's like I support him. I think that he's doing great things. Him and his girl. Like like I think I love them. And
All right.
they still love me and everything. So it's like okay, cool. My dad, I see the work that he's doing. So it's like okay, but I feel
Hmm.
like God. There's been a lot of like revelations that I've had personally where over the past 4 to 5 years where God, to my knowledge, was telling me like, yeah, no, you're supposed to be going this way. You were supposed to go through all the stuff that you went through. You were supposed to
Hmm.
believe what you did and go through the things that you did so that you can get to this point. But yeah.
So maybe not in this episode, but it might be good to do this again. I'm about to start having conversations with theists. So like, even in
Oh yeah.
hearing you say the things that you just said, I've got several questions that I would love to chop it up with you about, but I don't want
Yeah.
to derail from the conversation we're already having. But maybe we could circle back to some of that.
Yeah, most
So
definitely.
you
Probably.
you embrace the spirituality of what they're telling you about how the spiritual world works.
Mhm.
At that point, you believe the God of the Bible is the one who's in control of that whole spiritual world. And you were
Yeah.
around, you said 14, 15 at that time.
Yeah.
How many more years did you spend pursuing God in that vein? And what was life like during that time?
I'd say it wasn't until I was 25, maybe 26, maybe 25 though.
Okay, so at least 10
Um,
years.
yeah, yeah, and it was as strong as it could be.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, like I had like even at Liberty University, like the biggest Christian school, where I thought, everybody's Christian, so I'm not about to be like anything special because I grew up in the Bronx. So like in my high school back in the Bronx and everything, like they all saw me as like Christian boy and stuff like that. But it's like,
Right.
okay, well this is the Bronx, so like. But when I was at Liberty, I was like, okay, well like I'm not about to be anything special over here. But even there, I stood out amongst
Hmm.
everyone. And because like I was like all my friends like they were Christian and stuff, but like I was the one who was still like leading the Bible studies. I was the one who was still like I was very much
Get it.
all about really
Yeah.
understanding like doctrine and theology, getting just everything, just getting it together. And people were calling me pastor, preacher, just a
What
whole.
were you planning to do with your career?
I wanted to be a youth pastor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so I really wanted to mold young minds
Hmm.
to kind of like really understand themselves more, which is also part of like why I got into personality psychology, why it like really
Okay.
intrigued me. And I wanted to help people understand like, yo, like this is how God wired you, and this is how you can like use it to like create the world that God
Hmm.
intended for you to create. And I still believe that to an extent, but just not from like a Christian
Got you.
perspective. Like now it's like really like a more holistic, like God is love sort of thing. And so that's what I'm following.
Okay. All right. So for 10 years, you do that. You graduate with a degree from Liberty?
Yeah, communications is what I
Communications.
studied.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, do you ever go into ministry?
Not not officially, no.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you served at
like
churches
I,
basically.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. Like I was like hired for events to like preach here and there. Like I
Mm,
preached at my some churches, and also instead of preaching, sometimes they would also like hit me up to like teach about personality psychology and
okay.
like kind of like tell them a little bit like, oh, like these are some ways in how like God wired our minds and things of that nature. So yeah, that was like the ministry that I had at the time.
Got you. Were you in your Christian service? Were you sharing your faith? Were you winning souls to the gospel?
Absolutely. Even on
Okay.
Twitter. like I had led, yeah, I had led
Mm,
many people,
mm,
like at least 12 people over the years into my
mm,
Twitter DM where like cuz I would like be tweeting stuff
mhm.
like back then like hashtag Team Jesus. That's actually how I found our mutual friend. Like
Okay.
like we were both using that hashtag Team Jesus. And I had like a lot of followers back then.
Mm,
And I was just like, I was just tweeting like quips and like witty things and just like
mm,
really like speaking like like yeah, this is I was saying a lot of stuff. Like I'm a writer, so like the things I really believed, I was like, God's like using me to like speak to people. I was using the Twitter after dark hashtags, like when people were on some stuff, then like I
demon
was
time.
popping in. Yeah, and I was bringing people through, like when they're like looking up like like that Twitter after dark kind of content, and they would see my tweets, and I'm sure that most of them are probably like, oh, get this Jesus dude away. But then a lot of them are seeing it. And, when they
Mhm,
come across my tweets, like, like Jesus still loves you and he wants this. And like, you can pull back away from this. And I used to
mm,
be in this too. And boom, boom. And so then they would like connect with me and then they
mm.
would DM me. It's like, yo, I saw your tweets. I even literally put like a repentance prayer in like a lot of the tweets. So like, and then they'd be like, I just said your repentance prayer and boom, boom, boom.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm like, yo, that's what's up, and like I can help you in this way. So yeah,
So were you discipling these people too?
oh yeah, a lot of
Wow.
them. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Which is it's unfortunate now because a lot of them are like a dude hit me up like just a couple of years ago, and he was like, hey man, like I got married recently,
Mm,
and he said like literally he's so on fire for God and everything. He said it wouldn't like I would not have even been this way if not for you, and I didn't even have the heart to tell him. Like
mm.
I
Oh
was just like,
wow.
especially because again, like my current belief
Yeah.
is that there's a reason why you're on this path,
Okay.
and so, so yeah. But yeah, I discipled a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So over 10 years following the path, once you got even deeper, serious in it, 10 years in that, reading your
Hmm.
Bible, studying your Bible, going to Christian universities, you were living the life. Like, you don't have to say any more about this than you want, but
Yeah.
privately,
Hmm.
somebody could maybe say, yeah, but I bet privately you weren't living it in your behind closed doors. Were you doing all the Christian things even then, like practicing abstinence and
Hmm.
not watching certain things, watching your language? Were you doing all that stuff as well?
Yeah, I didn't cuss. I won't say like yeah. So I didn't cuss. I did not have penetrative sex before
Mm,
marriage. So and I didn't get married till 23 or 24. So
okay.
still, relatively early, but also like, but I knew her
Hmm.
ever since I was 18. So there was
Okay.
that too. So like it was just like, okay, it just seems like it was the next step.
And was she a
Um,
Christian as well? And did that matter in
yeah,
terms of why you chose her? Okay.
yeah, yep, yeah. And she also had not had penetrative sex like before marriage and everything. So we both had saved ourselves in that way. But yeah,
Oh wow. I thought
I
you were saying
pursued.
you didn't have penetrative sex with your wife. You're saying you went
Oh,
all the way up until
yeah,
marriage. Okay.
yeah, and yeah, it never slipped into anybody before marriage. Yeah, aside from like oral sex. But
Mm,
yeah, other than that, like yeah, like I was really like saving myself in that way. I was like fasting, because yeah, like I
mm,
was really strongly under the belief that like, and I was not perfect. I know everybody says that. It's like it's true, like and I was openly like admitting like yeah, no, I struggled with pornography, because
mm.
brother was horny still. Like when you're absent like that, it's
Hey,
like
you
okay,
wait till
well,
23, you're gonna struggle with a few things.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's like, but like every time like I was like, messing up with that, I was
Mhm.
adamantly trying to like, distance myself from all of that. And like, so yeah, like I wasn't perfect with it, but I was
Right.
definitely like
Got you.
living it
Got,
out.
got you.
Yeah.
All right. So then, how does it begin to, even if you don't become atheist or even agnostic, you at least distance yourself from Christianity? Were there cracks along the way, or did it like just all of a sudden? How does it fall apart?
Cracks for
Okay.
sure. I think the very first crack was uh first like when we got married, then due to religious trauma, then
Hmm.
there was now intimacy issues, for lack of better terms. And I'm like, why, God, like why would you allow this to happen
Hmm.
if we saved ourselves in this way and boom boom like it. And I was like hesitant to say this, but I was like, like if you really want me to like not sin, you could fix this issue. Because if we could fix this issue, then like that would take away. I literally I literally used to like say like it sounds arrogant, but like I used to literally say like, yo, like I could be like perfect. Like I don't lie, I don't steal, I'm not killing anybody, I don't hate nobody, like so the only like every sin was coming from lust. And it's like,
Mm.
yo, if we get this down pat, wouldn't have to worry about cheating, I wouldn't have to worry about pornography, I wouldn't have to worry about masturbation, like any of that. So it's like, why this? Like that
Mm.
doesn't make sense. Obviously Christians have explanations for everything. So,
I was about to say,
well,
yeah.
yeah, it's, the thorn in your flesh, so that you can continue to rely on God. And when
Mm.
you're a Christian, then you have almost, well, in my opinion, you have like no choice but to believe that, because in Isaiah it's talking about like God's ways are not our ways, and even his lowest level of foolishness is exponentially higher
Yeah.
than the greatest level of intelligence. So it's like,
Mm.
who am I to like question this? What he said to Job at the end, like, well, I can pretty much, he said I can do whatever I want. But then when you look at it from this angle, it's like, but why? Like, why do we like? There's nothing that you can do, because God is characterized biblically as good. Then that means even when he does something bad,
You have
we
to call
still
it
have to
good.
consider it good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like back then, like it was just something that like I knew that it didn't make
Wow.
full sense, but I
Mm.
also knew that hypothetically, if all of what I believed was true, then I can't question it. I just don't understand. I'm just not wise enough. I'm just not smart enough to be able to understand it. So going back to
The
like what you're
problem's
saying,
with
I
me,
was like,
not with this book, not with this God, not with it's me.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And once again, I keep on bringing it up because it's really such a big thing. Like in helping it, that helped me to be able to really get to this point. Me
Hmm.
learning about personality psychology as an ENFJ. There's this like every personality type, all the 16, they have 4 different mental processes. So my uh, most uncertain mental process of the 4, like it goes from like your strongest one to like your least strongest, and the
Hmm.
least strongest one that I have are the most uncertain, for to like for a better term, is a function called introverted thinking, and that's all about, which you as a TP, that would be your strength. So
Hmm.
like introverted thinking is all about like, okay, what makes consistent logical sense, what do I think aside from what everybody around me thinks, and how can
Hmm.
I stand on this? It's like picking things apart
Wow.
logically, all of the logical fallacies with that, and like, and
Hmm.
then trusting in your own logic, even if other people like disagree with it. That's my
Yeah.
most uncertain point. So it's not that I suck at it, but
Hmm.
it's like, okay, if something didn't make sense to me, if I was starting to poke holes, instead of like, if you're really like, not if you're really a TP as in like, oh, I don't believe it, but it's just because sometimes like tests, they can be wrong, but I can believe it from like, the things I've seen online and everything.
Right.
It's like, okay, no, I could see that. Because TPs tend to get into this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, um,
It's good.
unlike you, who was like probably better at being able to like detect these inconsistencies and really like poke at it more confidently, me, once it would come up, instead of like, how they have like straw man fallacy, where it's like
Yeah.
you can just kind of, I would steel man it.
You
It's
still,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like, oh, I'm just
Mm.
not smart enough to understand this. You know what? I don't understand this, but if I go look up Ravi Zacharias, who I
Mm-hmm.
also believe is a TP. Like he understood this. Like
Mm.
if he can break it down, like so that's kind of how it came down to where it's like, you know, everything that didn't make sense, I just kind of like, well, maybe it's because I'm just not, you know, smart enough in this way to get it, and boom, boom.
Wow.
Yeah. And that led me like, you know, getting an apologetic study Bible. Like I was
Okay.
all about apologetics, like because I knew that was my Achilles heel. Like even before I
Mm.
knew about personality psychology. So it's like I did not want anybody to look at me and be like, oh, he's not really the most logical person. So it's like I really built that.
Wow. So in your apologetics, it's one of the things that people say on the other side when once they deconvert, they say
Mhm.
apologetics pretends to be about defending the faith against unbelievers, but it ends
Mhm.
up being defending the faith against unbelief, like the apologists' own unbelief. They need the
Yeah,
apologetics to help fend it off. Can you see that in
yeah,
your? Mm,
yeah. Yeah, because I that was so the first crack was, you know, the thing with me and my wife. I was like, dang, like why would this happen? And I was like, that was the first time I was really upset with God because I was like, okay, when this happened, I wasn't mad. God, when this happened, I wasn't mad. When this happened, I wasn't mad. But really, oh, because what I was gonna say earlier was that, oh,
I'm
sorry.
here. I'm still here.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
cool. What I was gonna say earlier was that like what it felt like was that, and I told God straight up, like I was like, God, if I didn't know better,
Hmm.
I would say that you are actually putting me in situations to sin because this isn't adding up. I'm like literally begging you to fix this issue. It's
Wow.
not really working.
Wow.
So what choice do I have here? You know, and
But hold
that
on. So I'm curious, as a Bible believing Christian, did any
Mhm.
part of you say, and damn, that wouldn't be too far off from what you did to Adam and Eve?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I was definitely thinking that, yeah, and like, and I was also thinking about how like the Bible says, like, you know, God doesn't tempt; he
Hmm.
tests, which is like a difference. But I was like, well, this doesn't seem like a test. It seems like an actual temptation. So I don't, God, from my knowledge right now, it's not making sense to me. And so that was the first crack. And then so to
Wow.
go back to the whole TP thing, the second crack was Ravi Zacharias. Because going back to what you were just saying about how, as a Bible believing, you know, Christian and all that, you said something that made me like go back to that. Pretty much, um, when Ravi, like, I always used to tell my wife, like, yo, the day that this man says
Mm-hmm.
that he's not a Christian anymore is
Mm-hmm.
going to be the day that I seriously question my faith. Because anytime
Wow.
that I would start to like doubt my faith a little bit, even if I didn't have an answer to what one of the people I was discipling, I had no problem saying I don't know. But I was going to go learn. I was like, I
Mhm.
bet you Robbie knows though. Like that was my guy. So I went back, you know, I'd like look up all the stuff. I made a tribute on my page when he died and everything. Like it's still on
Mm.
my YouTube channel, like my favorite answers and responses that he did. And I was like, I just saw him as like so intellectually integral and everything. So,
Mhm.
you know, and I know that as a Christian, you're not supposed to like idolize somebody. And I honestly don't think that I idolized him, but I just saw him as like a very
Yeah.
reliable person when it comes to like logical, intellectual like reasoning in that sense. So I would tell my wife, like, yo, like, yeah, the day that he's not Christian is the day that not that I don't become a Christian, but I'm gonna seriously question my faith. And
Mm.
from my knowledge at the time, he died still a Christian. So I'm like, oh yeah, you know, cool. But then when the things came out about him, at
Mm.
first it was just like, oh, you know, sexual misconduct. And I saw like the stories, like I dug into it, and it was like this first story that I saw was like him having like inappropriate relationship with one of the people he was supposed to be mentoring. Like she was married, but then he kind of, and I was like, dang, you know, like this is bad. I'm not excusing it. It's bad, but the brother gets horny sometimes. Some nudes were exchanged. Boom, boom. I get it. David did what he did. So, you know, it is what it is. That's what I thought. But then when it
Mm.
started coming out that like knows there's more, like
Mm.
he was pretty much like sex trafficking. That's what really got me. I was like,
Mm.
that shattered me. And I was like, I can't make sense of a man who really firmly believed in all of these things, but then yet he was able to, because sex trafficking takes a lot of
Now,
I
see,
never do it.
I don't know about the first thing you just said or the sex trafficking. The only
Oh,
thing I ever heard about was the massage parlor,
That was a sex trafficking. Yeah.
that was trafficking.
Yeah.
The only thing, well, I may take this part out because it's not really germane to the conversation, but the only thing
Sure.
I remember was he was frequenting these massage parlors, and then one of the women in the massage parlor he actually had some kind of sexual encounter with, and then told the girl that she was God's like reward or something like that for his faithful service or something like that.
Crazy. Yeah. Like, and he like owned, from what I remember reading, like he owned a lot of these massage parlors. And
That I
so,
did
and
not
like,
know.
yeah. And so like, that's where how like a lot of the sex trafficking was going on. And he was like, when he was getting these massages and he would kind of like always do these lamentations like, oh, I wish that I didn't have to live the life that I lived. And so I just need to be like relieved in this way and this that. And he would like tell them like, don't tell anybody what you're doing to me over here, or else you
Hmm.
will be responsible for the millions of souls that now turn away from Christianity.
Wow.
And I couldn't wrap my head around that. Like I was like either, so at that point, again to my knowledge,
Hmm.
I was like, it has to be one of two things. Either he
Hmm.
struggled so badly with sin that like every single day he was going to God, like I can't stop sex trafficking and doing this and doing that, which to me seemed very unlikely. But I'm like, you know what? Maybe. I don't know, dude. But I said what seemed more likely was that through all of his, studies and everything, he probably came to a point where he was like, you know what, dang, this stuff
Hmm.
is probably not real. But I need to make money and I want to live my life and I already like built this and I don't want to turn these people away from the faith. So I'm not gonna live it behind closed doors, but I'm still gonna continue to push it to make my
Right.
money, to like make a living
Hmm.
for me and my family, to not turn people away and stuff like that. And I don't know for sure even to this day, like if that's really what it was, but that's what made the most sense to me. So that was a huge crack. Like that was like the
Okay.
second crack. Yeah.
Hmm.
And again, I didn't
Wow.
like immediately like run away from Christianity there, but like that was like again like that was like a second crack. That was like okay, okay, yeah,
So you're thinking it's likely the case that he knows something
exactly,
that allowed him to sin the way that he was sinning,
yeah,
and maybe the thing that he knows is this, like there's no there there.
yeah,
It's not
exactly,
really true, and so he can do this stuff. And
yep,
it
yeah,
scared you.
yeah. It definitely did. It made me. It confused me. I think is a
Hmm.
better word. It
Okay.
confused me because it was. It didn't shatter my paradigm, but it put like a whole. It put like many cracks
Hmm.
into the paradigm.
Hmm.
Um, but then uh, the third crack I remember is this guy named Clay Arnall on YouTube. He's an
Okay.
INFJ. And he had a video called "Why I'm No Longer a Christian," and I related so heavily to this dude.
Hmm.
Like I would watch all his YouTube videos, and I'd be like, "Yo, like yeah, like again, like me and him, like we think so similarly," and boom, boom. And so when he posted that video, I'm like, "What? Him too?" And when he talked about it, my comment is even still underneath that video. Like I wasn't trying to convert him back, but I was just kind of like, I see a lot of what you're saying, get your points, and boom, boom. And I was just like, but I don't even remember what exactly I said, but I was just kind of like, okay, I mean, I get what he's saying, but I was like, dang, it gave me a lot to think about. But then he
Hmm.
made a second video. And this is where, like, this was like probably like, the most monumental for me. The second video was pretty much like he said that after he made his first video, a whole bunch of people try to convert him to back to Christianity
Hmm.
or to their own religion. Like, see, Christianity wasn't the right one. Muslim, like Islam was the right one, or this
Hmm.
is that. And he was like, and they're all using the same tactics. So instead, I'm gonna make this video not to prove Christianity, but I'm making this video. It's something called like things that don't count as evidence for Christianity. So, and then he pretty much talked about logical fallacies, and he said, like, yeah, so if you're gonna try to convert me, just make sure that you don't do any of these things, and we should be good. And he goes through the logical fallacies. The biggest one was like appeal to ignorance, where it's like,
Hmm.
he uses the example, like, somebody could probably like, say like, well, I got into a car crash and the whole car like flamed up and everything, and the only thing that survived was a Bible.
Hmm.
It had to be God then, right? And he's like, and I don't even know if that was a specific example, if that was
Right.
one like, you know, I thought about, but like, but I was like, but pretty much the appeal to ignorance is like, I mean, it could have been God, but
Right.
we don't know for sure. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't just act like that's exactly what it is.
Hmm.
We cannot verify that. It is definitely like a statistical improbability that only the Bible survived kind of thing. Like that's crazy. But we don't know for sure. And a Christian could be like, oh, you're just being difficult. What more of a sign do you need? But it's like, that's not easy for skeptical people. You know, it's not like always like they're just trying to be difficult. It's like, God, if you know that my mind works like this, try to give me something that's very undeniable. You know what I'm saying? And so from watching that video, that's again like just one example. But when he went through all those fallacies, then I was like, dang, yeah, I can't even evangelize to people
Without
properly
using.
without using these. So that really made me start like digging into myself more. And that's when I started to really like question things. I started looking into other stuff. One of the biggest cracks was like when I found out that like a whole bunch of Christian apologists and theologians, like they already knew like the story of Jesus and the woman at the well was not real. I'm like, what? How did y'all know that, but not me? Like, and why is that there? And you know, people are like, well, that's not the point. Like, it doesn't take away from the gospel. I'm like, but why would we have to have a lie or a made up story or whatever it might be just to, you know what I'm saying? Just to like if everything is true, we don't have to add something that's most likely not true to prove what's true. Like that then makes me then question like, so what else in the Bible is not verified to be true? Boom. Then I started looking into like, okay, well, why was the book of Enoch never included? And just all this stuff. And it was just like, this is all too much. And then I saw the Zeitgeist. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but I
Yeah.
watched that. And yeah, you know, after like going in through all of that, Joseph Solomon, when he deconverted, I made a video on that because he was somebody I also like really like looked up to. I'm like, dang, like he was rolling with Ezekiel, Zonwu, and all of them. But what he was saying was like very valid. And so then I remember posting a video, and I hadn't come out as like not being a Christian at that point or anything. I was still like holding on, but I was like, I pretty much made the video like, guys, well, if he does like, you know, leave the faith, like is it really like should we really attack him? Like, and I was kind of using him as an example. Like I wanted to see like, okay, will y'all crucify him? If y'all do crucify him, then now I know what to expect. And so
You were
yeah,
living vicariously through his deconversion.
for sure. So yeah, those are like pretty much almost in
Right.
order, like what the cracks were.
As those cracks are coming up in your life, are you sharing them with your wife? Are you sharing them with any of the other Christians
Oh yeah.
around you?
Yeah. My wife, everything for sure, for
Okay.
sure. And she was having her own stuff too. That like, you know, like a mutual friend of ours, me and hers, was going through similar things, and so, and she was also very strongly Christian and like stuff like that. So my wife's seeing like, okay, both of these Christians that I really strongly value in that way, like, and my wife is also a very, very, very sharp critical thinker too. So it was just like at sometimes I'm like thinking to myself like, dang, like, you know, I'm the reason why she deconverted, and her, if her family were to find out, then they're all gonna blame me, and you know they probably still will, which is very sad because I love her family. Like they're like her father's a pastor. Well, he just retired, but like, you know, they're really like they're a very, very, very strong Christian family, and it's like, dang, everything's gonna be blamed on me, but um it's not me actually. Like it's like she has a mind of her own, and she was able to work through a lot of things on her own and everything. So yeah, but yeah, I was sharing with her. I was sharing with other Christian friends in subtle ways, like just asking questions, like being Bible studying, like, well, what do you guys think about this? And boom, and then I would just try to listen to hear if they'd use a logical fallacy, if they were like, you know, just certain things, and then
Yeah.
I'd see the tactics, and I'm like, got it. Okay. And I wouldn't even argue anymore. Like, because sometimes I wouldn't necessarily argue, but I just would want to push to see like what would it take to get you to be like, huh, actually, no. But they would just double down. And I was like, shoot.
Wow.
Okay. And I was never the type to really double down like that. I was just always kind of like, yeah, you know, I don't know. And so that's I think what set me apart from them
Got you.
in a way. Yeah.
I think I had an experience like that when I was in seminary where I saw the logical fallacies being used. I saw the circular reasoning. And as I looked passed seminary because I was in seminary to be a better apologist. I planned to go into secular academia, and I was going to be defending my faith and finding ways to sneak my faith into school systems and all that. But when I saw the circular reasoning and I saw, like you said, the appeal to ignorance and the appeal to incredulity, when I saw those things, I remember myself thinking, I don't like the way that looks on them.
Yeah.
And if I were to do that, I wouldn't like the way it looks on me.
Exactly.
And that pushed me away.
Yeah, because it makes you like less credible. And that's a big thing for me. I do not want to be like our mutual friend that me and you have. Like, I'm always telling her, like, just look at my track record. Like, we have like an insider, like, yo, like, it's almost like a have I ever led you wrong type of thing. And that's why when she asks me certain questions, then I give her very like vague, like, yo, I don't know. Because when I don't know, because I don't want to mess up my track record. But then when I tell her, like, no, this is what it is. This is what it is. That's just that. Then she's like, okay, because I don't want to, like, so that's like, I'm really big on credibility. And when I see that, like, okay, this could be harming my credibility, then it's like, oh, I got it. That's why, like, I'm really big on like trying to stay as objective as possible. So even where I am right now, spiritually, the difference is that back then I really firmly believe, like, oh, this is the truth. Like, I like, and people who disagree, they have their reasons for believing the thing, but it's just wrong, and they're just misguided. But I have the truth, even if I don't fully understand it. But now it's more of a, okay, this is how I view the world based off of the experiences I've had, the experiences I continue to have, and for that reason, but even with all of that, I can understand that maybe my current worldview is wrong. Like right now, I believe in past lives. I still believe in God, like I said. And there's a lot of things that, like, I believe in. But if somebody's like, oh no, I don't believe in that, like, oh, okay, yeah, no, maybe you're right. Like, I'm open. Like, this is what I have right now, and I can argue it. I can give you reasoning as to why I believe this right now. But unlike with Christianity, where it's like, this is the truth, I was like, no, I just have a lot of reasoning for why I believe it, but I'm still open. Like, at this point, I'm not clinging to anything heavily. So
so let's put a bow on that other conversation real quick. Was there a death knell moment? Was there a moment where you closed the book on the Bible and Christianity, said, I now know I don't have to worry about this anymore?
Yeah, I think it was after my first psilocybin shroom trip.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know how that could sound from another paradigm, where it's like, if we're going screw tape letters, that was a demon that got into you, and boom, boom. Hey, maybe. I can't verify that, and I can't, but yeah, like, that was when, like, all the cracks, it's like it came together and it started to make sense.
How? Like, can you help us understand the connection? Like, how did it?
So the way that shrooms work, I read books on it and everything, and there's one image I always go back to that's really cool. It's an image where it's like, it shows your brain and the neural pathways of how your brain looks like when it's just like sober, like, and just cool, like, just chilling, like normal. And then the neural pathways and everything when you're on shrooms, and it's exponentially, like, more connections going on and stuff like that. And so what I can say is that while I was on that shroom trip, the best way I can explain it is that on a day-to-day basis, I'm always trying to get things to kind of like connect. And I get a lot of things to connect on their own. But when I was on shrooms, I took like 5 point something grams. So that was my first time doing shrooms. I was on a hero dose. And that's a lot. But the people that I was with, they had done it before. They're very intellectual, smart people. And I was like, is this safe? Boom, boom. I was in a safe space. So I was like, you know what? Let's go with it. And I was in a very like shadow work type of time that I was like, look, if the scariest thing I'm about to run into is myself, I'm ready for it. And I tackled myself that night. Like, it was hours. Like, I spent most of the time like in a room by myself, and so many things are like happening. I was sending certain messages to my wife, like voice text. It was an experience that I've never had before. Um, and so with that, like it was like again, like on like I'm usually when I'm trying to connect things. So now it's like the things that I couldn't really fully connect, they just immediately all started connecting. And it's one of those things that's like it's hard to explain. But I was just like, I get it. It just downloaded. It's like, oh wow, I get this and I get this, and like things just connected. And I was like, this is insane. And then after that, I was like, yeah, I think that this is what it is. And after that, I just had, ever since that day, I just had more of a confidence, like, yeah, I'm good. And it was a connection. One of the biggest connections pretty much was like, I had been praying fervently, like, God, first of all, my life is going to become a whole lot harder if I'm not a Christian. Like all of my closest friends are Christian pretty much. And this is that, boom, boom. So I was kind of telling God, I don't want to leave this, especially if it's the truth. Help me, help me. I'm crying in the shower over this, like all of that. And I'm like trying to get him to keep me in Christianity. But I'm like, if it is not the truth, if this is really like, if you're really trying to guide me a different way, I need to know for sure. And he, like during that shroom trip, he verified, like, yeah, from my understanding, he verified, like, yep, I'm trying to get you to go this way. And my friend David, he's like, well, I just think that he's making you take the long way around, and you're gonna come back around, like it's like a prodigal son type of thing. Maybe. Maybe. At this point, I'm like, I don't know what. Like, I just turned 30 in December. I'm like, when I was 20, I did not expect to be where I am now in 30. So maybe at 40, who knows? But I just know that it would take a lot, like something very, like a lot of very key things for me to go back to Christianity. And it wouldn't be the same way that I did before. But yeah.
Okay. So in saying that, and I really am going to hold off asking you theist questions. I'd love for you to come back on. We can talk about that. But in saying that, if you say it's going to take a lot for you to go back to Christianity, what then do you do with some of the key themes of Christianity? Because one of the things that Christianity helped answer for me was sort of like you, why can't I stop struggling with this particular sin? Oh, because I'm a sinner. That's my nature. It explained that for me. What happens when I die? Well, there's a judgment, and then there's heaven and hell. It gave me those answers. What do you do with any of those? Do you still have any of those questions, and how do you answer them now when it comes to? Do you think that humans are sinners, and if so, why do we sin? What's the solution for that? What do you do with the afterlife? What do you do with purpose? Anything in that vein? What do you do with that now?
Yeah, very loaded question.
Yeah.
Per usual. Try to truncate it. The short answer is that I can't say anything for certain. I don't speak with certainty, like almost ever. But from my opinion and my perspective, based off of my experiences, based off of like, the shroom trips I've taken, and just the stuff I've read, all of that, I do not believe in sin. I actually consider myself to be amoral, which is essentially not. It's different from immoral. Amoral in the sense that like I don't believe there is an objective, universal morality that we should all follow. I think that as humans, we make a lot of this stuff up when we look at ethics and everything. Like stuff as simple as like the age for drinking, age for consent, like all of these things are like they're made up and they're used to like help us, but it's like it's humans doing their best to like just make things work. And in different cultures they have like different things, so it's like I don't think there's like an objective universal morality in that way. And that being said, it's like I still have my own views on like, okay, I think that this is wrong for me and I would like for other people to not do this. But also at the same time, with my spiritual beliefs on like, reincarnation and everything like that, I believe that life is kind of like a dream where our soul is being reborn to learn lessons each time. And that's why when you hear about like people being like an old soul, it's usually because their soul has gone through enough lifetimes where they've kind of like had to learn lessons in each life. It's like you're in heaven, if you will, and God's like, okay, you're about to go on earth as this guy named Denzel, And when you become Denzel, like, here's a little snapshot. I can't give you everything. It was like, you're going to go through this, you're going to go through that, you're going to go through this, you're going to live up to probably this, and you're going to die, like, after having learned this, and boom, boom. But there are so many lessons that your soul is going to have to learn before you die that'll then carry you on to the next lifetime, and boom, boom. And so, and then when you die and you're back in the spiritual, then all of a sudden it's like when you wake up from a dream, like here on the physical plane, like when you're dreaming, then you wake up and you're like, shoot, like all of a sudden it's like, how did I not know that wasn't a dream? But like, so I feel like that's how it's gonna be, like, when you die, it's like, oh, life was just that. Like, now I remember, before I even went and was Denzel, like, yeah, like I remember this moment, like everything just kind of like comes back, but you retain all the lessons, all the wisdom from that. And then when you go back on earth once again, now as a whole different person, probably even a whole different gender, like you retain.
And so you're making me want to dive deeper in it. So what would, in that scheme of things, what would be the point? Like, how many lives do you go through, or do you have to go through? Like, what's the point of learning all these lessons, life after life?
The shortest way I could put it is to actually get back to God. So I believe in Carl Sagan's quote where he says that we are the way in which the universe comes to know himself. And so I believe, if God is love.
No, itself, he says, right?
Itself. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah.
Good.
As soon as I said it, I was like, oh, misquoted it. Yeah. Yes, the universe comes to know itself. And so I believe that the universe, God, spirit, etc., is like, oh, how would I look like as Brady? How would I look like as Denzel? How would I look like as, how would I look like as, whoever? And just constantly like we are all, that's where people, in my opinion, get the concept, like we are God, kind of thing. And so then when you look at people who are going wayward or doing things that I would view as like not moral, when you're able to understand that they're an extension of yourself, like that person is me. We all come from the same source, but they were just misguided. They just went down this way, boom, boom. Then now you can feel like a connection to them, and it's like through love that you're able to now, get.
So you still seem to have a concept of the fall, even if it's not in the Garden of Eden. There's something that gets us off track, and we're trying to get back on track.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. As of right now, I guess I would say so. Yeah. Like, I think that so like to answer even like further your question of like how many lifetimes it takes, I think it's different for everyone. Like some people, in my personal opinion, as of right now, it takes them a lot of lifetimes to like, to get the message. And then there's this show called Midnight Gospel on Netflix. And I remember like one episode, there was somebody who was talking about very similar concept of what I believe. And I was like, yo, like this is interesting. And it's not like I thought that like I came up with this originally, but it's always cool to like see when my thoughts and like current beliefs are like converging with other people's that I have no idea like they existed or whatever like that. And in one of them, like I just remember the guy saying like, look at it, he's still not getting it. He's gonna have a few more, and it was like, yeah. And so, and then that also then further pushes like so many other ideas of like, like now when like certain people, like they have like certain values, like, oh, I don't want to kill this person because it's wrong, or like I don't want this person to die or whatever. But in my opinion, sometimes it's like maybe this person does have to die because they've just messed up this lifetime of theirs so badly that they need to restart. And hopefully in the next lifetime, they can like come back.
There's all kind of ethical questions that come.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And then it's like, from this view, it's like you're almost doing them a favor. Again, can't verify that. But
please, this is not an endorsement, anyone. For anybody out there who thinks, oh, I'm going to go restart some people right now.
I have not killed anybody. I've not encouraged anybody to kill anyone, just for the record. But it's just, it does sound like this is where things are going, then it's like, oh, maybe this is what we should do. Like, how they'd be like, you're playing God if someone's, I don't know, doing like euthanasia or something. In my opinion, it's like, well, I think you're also playing God if somebody's literally like a vegetable
Yeah.
and they're like about to die, but you're
Mm.
keeping them hooked up on all these tubes and everything to like try to
That's a good way
preserve
to look at it. You're playing out either way.
exactly,
Trying to keep someone here when they don't want to be here.
exactly,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, please, you got to come back to talk about the theist stuff because you have a very interesting way to look at it. I'm hearing different threads of different religious worldviews in what you're
Mhm.
saying. But no, I like what you said. Like the idea of remaining open. I think to some extent, I too have to remain open to. I think I'm pretty much I've pretty much closed the book on Christianity being anything near truth.
Mhm.
Like logic and truth would have to work the way that we don't know it to work in order for the Bible to be true.
Yeah.
Like contradictions would have to be able to be um, allowed and accepted, and I couldn't see that. But I think to some extent there are things that I cannot rule out. I cannot rule out a God, though I think a God is probably the wrong idea, and I
Mhm.
understand why people came up with it. But I can't
Mhm.
rule it out. I can't say for sure that I know that that's not the case.
Yeah.
Um, but I like the idea of remaining open and then at the same time skeptical. So like
Mhm.
I'm open, but I'm not gridless. You can't just go shoving anything in, talking about, well, believe this and try this. I have a grid, and
Exactly.
logic is that grid. Reason is that grid. We talk about doing things in reason's name, whereas it used to be
Mhm.
in Jesus' name.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yep.
so yeah, I appreciate that. So then what do you think then? Well, I know you said the purpose is to get to the point where you can return to God and not
Mhm.
have to come back and do this again.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that key
Um,
is pretty much like love. Like the more, which it
mhm,
sounds very kumbaya, but it's like because in my current worldview, like God is love. The
mhm,
closer that you learn to love, which comes from understanding that we all come from source, like
mhm,
oh, even that person who's doing all these heinous things, like they are an extension of me. That
mhm.
is me, just from a different, you
Yeah.
know, whatever. It's like now you feel some sort of like sympathy. Um, and you're able to have a certain love for that person that then changes a person in a way,
Hmm.
and it brings you closer to each other. So now as the universe is trying to get to know itself by splitting far, it's like Jung has a concept, uh dang, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's pretty much the idea of separating yourself
Mhm.
to make yourself like as an individual, and then
Differentiation.
differentiation. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, exactly. So it's kind of like that, where it's like after now you've gone that whole thing, which could almost mirror like the prodigal son in a way too, because everything is now like symbolic if you
Hmm.
look at it. But like sometimes you look at it too literally in certain ways,
Mhm.
and so and that's my opinion,
Right.
But as of right now, but yes, like so it's
Yeah.
kind of like that. We all really go our own way, and then after we're like, dang, like I've lived my life in this way, or boom, 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 or I've lived my lives in this way, and you've retained all the souls, like all the information there. Now you like recombine with source,
Hmm.
like because you're getting closer and closer to what that
Yeah.
is. That's how I see it.
So we're close, but distant in some ways in how we think. Because in the way that you appeal to our sameness, like I am that person's me, we're the same.
Mm,
What allows me to move towards love and unity and all that is not sameness, but similarity.
mm,
I look at and I say if we come from the same stuff, like we're made of star stuff, where
mm,
everything that's here in this planet is some star exploded and recoalesced in the ways that we now see it.
mm,
But for me, it doesn't make me say, oh, we're the same. It
mm,
makes me say we're so similar. And this is like the one thing I agree with Jesus on, where he says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you,
mm,
based on the principle that, and I have to add in, Jesus did not originate that. He got that from a older teacher named Hillel. But
mm,
the idea is we're so similar that whatever I would want for me, you probably want the same thing for you.
mm, mm,
Whatever I would feel if I was in that situation, you probably feel that too.
mm,
That allows me to have empathy for you and
Right.
do for you what I would want done for me if I were in that situation.
Hmm.
So I don't have to go as far as to say we're the same.
Hmm.
I can just say we're probably so similar
Hmm.
that it behooves me to do for you what I would want done for me, because I that could easily be me.
Yeah, 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 for
You
sure.
know?
And even with that, it's like my mind can't help but think of the golden rule versus the platinum rule.
Yeah.
Whereas like golden rule is like, oh, treat others the way you want to be treated, but then people go a step further. But the platinum rule is like, no, treat others how they would like to be treated. And
Hmm.
obviously sometimes the way that people themselves want to be treated maybe should not be the way that you should treat them. So it's like, which one
Hmm.
really? But sometimes the way that you would want to be treated
Right.
is not the way the person would want to be treated. I know
Right.
people who they'd want to be treated a certain way. Like, yeah, no, I don't want hugs. I don't want to be like
Hmm.
loved on in this way. I don't want. But maybe that's kind of like
Hmm.
how they like. But that's how somebody else would want to be.
Yeah.
So you should probably honor that. But yeah, I get what you're saying though, overall.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's I can definitely see like the
Hmm.
intersections there for sure.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Hey, well, like I said, this is, I hope, will be part one, and we can do a part two and come back. Anything else you would like to share in terms of words of wisdom or things that you've learned on your journey,
Mm.
um, that you think would
Uh,
help folks?
I write a lot of poetry
Hmm.
to express myself. Um, and recently, well, so I would say that I wrote three different poems on each phase of my deconstruction. The
Okay.
first one was called a poem called Leaving the 99. Um,
Mm.
and I think that, like, I don't think I've posted that one publicly anywhere, but eventually maybe I'll post it on my channel. Um, but the second poem is called Tranquility Tree. That one you can find it on my channel. If you look up Tranquility Tree, Denzel Mensah, you'll see it there. That was like when I was in the middle phase of
Hmm.
my. I think that was pretty much like after like my shroom trip. Like, you know what?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. And then the recent poem that I posted is called Selah, and it's pretty much me talking to a Christian, like a dear Christian, just
Mm.
listen kind of thing. And so I think that looking at those pieces on my channel, it will give a lot of insight and everything.
Okay.
Um, but
And we'll drop the
overall,
links to your channel in the description and underneath the video here, so people
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah,
it.
most stuff. But I think that, yeah, like overall, like the biggest thing is just really come down to like uh, continuing to be open and learn as much as you can. Like understand paradigms. I think that's the biggest thing. Like
Mm.
understand your own paradigm. Plato talked about the allegory of the cave. Like
Hmm.
like understand like everything that you're viewing. Even how I'm saying this right now, I can't help but see it as like this is my paradigm. That paradigms exist, but like
Mm.
everything that you're viewing, everything that you see, the way that you perceive it. There's another quote that says like we don't even view the world the way that it is. We view the world the way that we are. So like if the more that you really remind yourself of that, you meditate on that, and you come to understand that, the more you're able to like step back and be more objective, the best that you can, to then
Mm.
be able to separate like, okay, this is what I know for sure, like verified. This is what I'm not so sure about, but I believe. This is what I want to believe, but I can't. This is what I don't believe. And just separating stuff. And it
Yeah.
takes a lot of work. I'm still doing
Yeah.
all of that. But if you start practicing that, I think that it'll actually do you really good in the long run.
And it's one of the benefits and drawbacks of religion is religion cuts short a lot of the work that you need to do to
Yeah.
understand yourself and understand your world and understand why people do what they do. Religion just gives you these black and white, useful but not very helpful ways to understand. So they'll invent things like sin, and they'll talk about the separation between God and man, and you're just trying to get back to God and all that.
Yeah.
But if you really had to do the work of understanding what drives you,
Hmm.
why do you not always do what's in your best interest or the best interest of others? Why do you do what's in the best interest of yourself and others at time? Like,
Hmm.
it takes work to understand that. But it's sort of lazy, I think, to kind of just fall back on religion and say, oh, well, I'll just go to these already made answers, these cookie cutter answers.
Hmm.
And it does help you get further. Like when I became religious,
Hmm.
I wouldn't have called it religious. I would have said when I began my relationship with God through Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, but I was religious. When I became religious, I instantly went from making straight F's and D's in high schools to making the honor roll. I became,
Mm,
the model child in my household. Everything changed.
hmm.
So those easy answers were useful,
Yeah.
but they really weren't helpful when it came to understanding what a human being is and what this life is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it set me back a lot of ways. I had a lot of arrested development that
Hmm.
I didn't begin to, and maybe because you studied psychology, you were a little better than I was, but I didn't begin to get a better understanding of myself until late in Bible college before I went to seminary, where I took a course on psychology.
Mm,
And I immediately began to get answers for things in this intro to psychology course that after 20 years in religion, I still was struggling with.
yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm constantly like just diving into myself
Yeah.
and how I'm having certain biases, how my paradigm is working, how I'm interacting with certain people, how the way that they're interacting with me is influenced by all of that. So it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that that's a good word, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna let it rock on that point, and hopefully we'll see you back on this for a part two. But thank you so much for sharing your story. Wish you nothing but the best, man. Love, logic, and light to you.
Yeah, appreciate you for having me, man. Seriously, and yeah, I'll definitely be back.